Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending today's committee. On behalf of myself, Councillor Mallinson, Councillor Mohammed, and members of this committee, I would just like to make a statement. All of us have been deeply saddened to hear yesterday of the death of a teenage boy at All Saints Catholic High School in our city. Our thoughts remain with the boy's family, the children and staff at school, and to all those who knew him. They will be deeply affected by what happened at this difficult time. The safety of every child who lives and goes to school across Sheffield is paramount to all that we do as a committee and as an organisation. Every child should be able to attend school and feel safe and secure, and we will continue to work with partners to ensure that this is the case. This is, of course, a live police investigation, and we urge everyone to please not speculate as to what happened and to who was involved, while our partners at South Yorkshire Police continue their work. Please think about who may be reading what is posted on social media, such as those so badly affected by this. Our council teams are working closely with the school, their trust and South Yorkshire Police to offer all of the support that we can as a local authority. We are also reaching out to other schools across the city to offer support following this tragic incident for all those who may need it. If we could just take a moment for reflection, I would appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. We now move on to today's agenda. So the meeting today is a public meeting and it is open to the public, but there are no items on today's agenda that are exempt information. The meeting will be webcast and recorded. We've received no public questions or statements for today's meeting, and can I please request that all mobile phones and such devices are switched to silent mode as to not disturb the conduct of the meeting. There is no fire test planned for today. If there is an emergency evacuation, please take instructions from Town Hall staff, and the assembly point is in Tudor Square. I will go around now and ask each member of the committee to introduce themselves. I'll go this way, thank you.
Councillor Toby Mallinson, Hillsborough Ward.
Councillor Mohammed, Mahroof, Graves Park Ward.
Councillor Rebecca Atkinson, Durham-Totley Ward.
Councillor Bannister, Graves Park Ward.
Thank you, members. And when officers speak, if you could introduce yourself before you start to speak, I'd appreciate that. Thank you. Apologies for absence today are Councillor Talib Hussain, Councillor Maleiki Haybe, and Councillor Ann Whittaker, and Councillor Nighat Basharat is running late today. Thank you. Do we have any members who wish to declare an interest in any of today's items on the agenda? No, thank you. Okay, if we turn to page 13 on our agenda pack for the minutes from the previous meeting, if we can, we've got two sets of minutes to approve, as we had our extraordinary meeting in January. Can we accept these as true record of our previous two meetings? Yeah, thank you very much. That's agreed. We now move on to agenda item number 5, which we don't have any public questions, petitions or statements today, and no members' questions. We'll move straight on to item 7, which is the work programme, and Rachel Marshall will be presenting today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. The agenda pack lays out the work programme from page 31. Page 32, there is a list of recommendations that we would be asking the committee to approve today. If you leaf down or through the pack, depending whether you're looking at it electronically or you've got it on paper, you can see on page, moving down myself, page 37, you will see the Agenda layout for the forthcoming meetings. It includes today's meeting, of course, and then we've got the 1st of April for the rest of this municipal year. And then beyond that, there are a few slots for meetings of which there's no known date yet, but they will be filled out as we move along. So that is for the committee to look on, comment on and agree. And I will pass back to you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Any comments or questions on the work programme today? Councillor Mahroof.
Thank you, Chair. I might have missed it because I've got the wrong version here. I've got the public version that I've been looking at. But I just wanted to know what's happening with the new school that we're building in High Green, whether we can get an update on that on the work programme.
Thank you. I don't see why not. If we can pop that on the work programme, please. I would like to reassure you that we are meeting with members from the area and also with High Green Development Trust regularly. Officers are speaking with them.
It's just been a fair few months now since we last had an update.
Thank you. We'll get that on.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any more comments or suggestions for work programme? No? Okay. If we can now move, thank you, Rachel, for that. If we can move on to agenda item number 8, which is Springfield Nursery Significant Change. And we've got Matt Pears and Joe Horrobin, officers presenting today. And we've got guests David Ward and... Oh, you're not David. Would you like to come forward and introduce yourselves along with Matt and Joe? Thank you.
Hello, my name's Mrs. Josie from Springfield Primary School.
And I'm Sally Holder from Springfield Primary School. And we are the co-head teachers.
Thank you and welcome.
My name is David Ward. I'm the Chair of Governors at Springfield.
And I'm Matthew Pears, Head of Commissioning.
Thank you. Matt, would you like to take us through? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dale. So the report presented to the committee follows the previous committee item to consult on a permanent closure, which was presented in September 24. This followed a temporary closure of Springfield Nursery in 2023. In terms of activity that's taken place since we last discussed the item, a 6-week consultation took place last autumn, and there was significant promotion and engagement activity around that consultation, with numerous sessions and over 500 surveys distributed. Whilst we did that, there was quite a very low response rate of 2.1%, and the results of the consultation suggest to us that most people understand and accept the reasons for the closure of the nursery. The recommendation presented in the report, therefore, is to close the nursery permanently in line with the statutory process. Doing this will help realise kind of 3 key benefits. So firstly, it will support schools to focus on meeting the needs of reception to Year 6 pupils. Secondly, the physical space will be available as a community asset. And thirdly, it will support the school's activity around managing its budget. So I'll pause there and any comments from committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Has anyone got any questions or comments? We did meet you before when we went out to consultation, and thank you for coming then as well. I think we asked you a lot of the bulk of the questions at that point. And have any members got any questions or comments on this one? And would the school like to say anything before we go on to the recommendations?
We hope that the report we gave you was concise and gave a really clear explanation as to why we'd come to this very difficult decision, which was very considered, and in light of that reduction, very significant reduction, it was in the best interest of all concerned, because it still actually allowed us to free up a space where we could provide other types of support for our community, which we have been doing and building on significantly. And so we're now involved in a lot of the public health agendas as well, working with the early years, the Haybe project. I don't know if you're aware of that early years, and that's around making sure the health in the early years is good or better, and supporting parents and families. So although it's very, very sad, but budgetary-wise and quality of education-wise, and making sure that the children in our school are having absolutely the best chances of the best quality of education they can have, this was, we believe, the right decision to make.
Thank you very much. I think the fact that no one needs to ask any questions proves that your report has been really well drafted and answered all any questions that any of us might have had. I will move on to the recommendations then, if that's okay. So this report recommends that this committee note the results analysis of the 6-week formal consultation feedback and approves and agrees the recommended decision of permanently closing Springfield Nursery in line with the statutory process, making significant changes, prescribed alterations to maintain schools. Do we all approve and agree that? Thank you. Yes, we do. That's approved. Can I just at this point say thank you for everything that you do for the community and the offer that you're providing. I know one of our officers only came out to visit last week and came back. And I think I probably need to come and have a look at what you're doing because it sounded like really interesting and exciting stuff. So thank you for all the support that you're giving to the families in your school and community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can I say a special thank you to Rebecca, who's really helped and support to this process, because it is tricky and it is a lot of hard work. And we really appreciate that. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you very much.
So if we can now move on to agenda item number 9, which is on page 73 of your agenda pack. And this is school admissions arrangements for 2026-27 academic year. And John is coming forward to present today. Thank you. Oh, John, can you find your name card? Where are they? Where, John? Okay, if you can pop your name card up in front of you, that'd be great. Thank you. Fantastic, thank you. Don't forget to press your button.
Thank you. Would you like me just to introduce the item, just summarise?
Yes, please.
Okay, thank you. So this is the annual requirement to approve the admission arrangements for community and voluntary controlled schools. You might recall from previously, we only have to consult once every 7 years if there haven't been any changes. So the last time we consulted was 2023-24. There haven't been any changes to the proposed arrangements subsequently. So basically they're the same as last year for 25-6. In addition to the admission arrangements, there's also the admission arrangements into sixth forms and the coordinated admission schemes. The schemes are a statutory document that sets out how we manage admission into the first year of entry. That's a statutory requirement. So that will be for reception, for separate junior schools and for year 7. Thank you. Happy to take any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? I mean, we have been briefed. For members of the public who aren't aware, we do get briefed about this and work with officers as part of this is the final iteration of discussion and report. So does anyone else have any questions regarding this report from John? No? Okay. So because there have been no significant changes in this, the recommendation is that the oversubscription criteria for community and voluntary controlled schools for 2026-27, including external sixth forms, we're approving this, by the way, sorry. We approve the proposed admissions numbers for 2026-27, and we approve the statutory, primary and secondary coordinated admissions scheme for 2026-27. Are we all in agreement? Yep, all in agreement. Thank you, John. Thank you. Okay, so then we're going to move on to agenda item number 10, which is on page 143, and that is the DCS update report, and we'll go across to Meredith to give us a report. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. So this report is my regular feedback to committee about what we are focusing on, what we've been undertaking over the last couple of weeks since the committee in December. What I've hopefully helpfully included is the information about the Children and Schools Bill. There's also information about the Safeguarding Hub and reminding people about the duty around the Safeguarding Hub. We continue to do the work with a range of different system leaders around both neurodiversity and around special educational needs and disabilities. All of those things will be coming to committee in the next municipal year. We've highlighted the areas that we are prioritising again over the next year, 18 months, and the focus that we have in that arena. I'm happy to take questions. Hopefully the information is self-explanatory and gives you an idea of what we are doing, what we're focusing on. There is the important element as well in 1.7 around the all-age mental health strategy, which is again an update, and further information will be coming to committee in the coming municipal year. So happy to take any comments or questions.
Thank you, Meredith. Does anyone have any questions on Meredith's report? Any comments? No? Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Meredith, for that. Are we all agree with this? Is just for noting, so we're all happy with that. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Agenda item number 11 then is our children's home residential strategy, and Lindsay Knight will be presenting. Lindsay, if you can just find your name tag and pop it on, that'd be great. Thank you. This is on page 155 for anyone looking. Thanks.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lindsay Knight, Assistant Director for Children and Families, and I have responsibility for our children's residential service, our in-house placements team, and also our supported accommodation. I'm here today to provide an update against the residential strategy. I appreciate that my paper has been circulated, so my intentions today are to pull out the key themes, and then I'm happy to take any questions. Before I go into the actual progress against the strategy, I thought it would be really important to highlight the journey that the service has taken over the last 18 months. We've worked in a very complex system. Unfortunately, on the back of the pandemic, a number of our homes struggled and were working in silo. There was a lack of connectivity to the wider children's services, and this presented some significant problems. Regrettably, we had repeated failings in line with the Ofsted framework, and the homes were struggling to move beyond requires improvement. So 5 out of our 8 children's homes had stagnated in requires improvement, and our mainstream homes unfortunately hadn't been able to move out of that position for over a decade. So we were really clear as a leadership team that this was a very important piece of work, and we needed to make some traction and move this on. We looked at the key themes from the historic Ofsted reports, and some of those related to things such as inconsistent management oversight, lack of evidence of outcomes, tired home environments, and a lack of therapeutic interventions within the children's homes. So as a leadership team, we were really clear that we needed to create a strategy for the service that was going to make improvements. But in order for us to do that, we needed to take a real hands-on approach, and that meant that we had to take time to really understand the problem. So in order to create an effective strategy for the service, that was the approach that we took. And that meant walking alongside our staff members, practitioners, registered managers, but more importantly, walking alongside our children to understand their lived experiences in the home. And by doing that, it took time. And that was really important time actually for the service, and it helped us shape and create the strategy moving forward. But what we were really clear about is that we needed to set some standards, and we had clear expectations, and within that we created a new governance system to ensure that there was line of sight from all senior managers in regards to the service. We set out some clear non-negotiables that were linked to the Ofsted outcome themes, and we created our vision and ambition within our children's residential service. In Sheffield, we're really passionate about creating homes filled with love, nurture, praise and encouragement. Our staff create long-lasting relationships where our children can develop a sense of belonging and connection. We created a leadership ethos which permeates throughout our homes. And with strong leadership, we work together to ensure our children feel heard. They're at the heart of what we do. We build stable and loving homes, and we work with others to create a community around our children. We wanted to improve the home conditions because the estate was looking tired and we needed the resources and the support. And I really do believe that this epitomised how together we really do get things done. And we're really grateful of the support corporately. We undertook lots of renovation work, created new bathrooms, floorings, decorations. And I'd like to just take a moment to read an extract from one of the historical published Ofsted inspection reports and a more recent one from last year. Decorations and furnishings have deteriorated over several months. Homely touches completely disappeared. Physical environments have suffered lots of damage. Although it has been made safe, the premises and overgrown garden are not maintained. Our last inspection reported, children enjoy living in this home. The home is well maintained. It's decorated in vibrant, child-friendly colours. The home's been redecorated throughout, including children's bedrooms. Children were involved in the improvements, and this has fostered a sense of belonging. Aside from that, we also needed to be really clear about the practice standards within the home, but this required a collaborative approach. We needed to move away from paternalistic models of practice, using sanctions as a means to manage behaviour, to move into a more therapeutically aligned sense of practice. We were successful in appointing a clinical psychologist to support our children and staff. Staff have clinical supervision, and we also extend this to birth family to support reunification. We've developed new therapeutic tools, recognising our children's achievements, helping them build on their aspirations. And we've also provided bespoke training for our staff team. One of the things that we are leading well on in Sheffield is the work that we undertake with our birth family that aligns with our sufficiency strategy and our sufficiency principle. Residential is not the end destination, it's a chapter in our children's lives. And we've recently supported 2 children to return home to their birth family, one of whom was in care for 7 years. And both of those children are thriving. In terms of the strategy itself, it's really pleasing to report that we've actually achieved the majority of what we set out. All of our home statement of purposes are aligned with our goals and values. We've renovated a small bungalow. Without the support from the council, this would have left a child essentially moving far away from his family. This would have affected his identity, his sense of belonging, his friendships, and his relationship with his birth family. But we've been able to provide a home for this child in his city where he belongs and where he can connect with his family. This would have been a very costly placement to the local authority had we not had this investment. We understand the needs of our children and we can plan for the future and what our homes need. We also have a much more consistent therapeutic approach within our homes, although this needs to continue to be embedded. We've successfully relaunched our short breaks provision, supporting 20 families, and we've got plans for our other short breaks provision to recommence in early summer, which will double the amount of support to our Sheffield families. We're in the middle of a new build of a children's home through successful bid funding from the DFE, and in spring we will have created 2 new placements for children in Sheffield. We have plans to expand our secure children's home, creating more spaces for young people nationally. And it's really pleasing to report that all the 5 homes that were failing to improve are now graded good. And again, I'd just like to read an extract from a historical Ofsted report to a more recent one. The quality of care is not yet good enough. One child said it's chaos. Staff do not understand the children's needs. A more recent report from last year stated, staff have meaningful conversations with children to support their safety and progress. Children say they feel safe living here. Staff know the children well, and they understand their experiences. Staff are proud of children's experiences, and therapeutic parenting is being embedded. The staff are energetic, fun, and responsive to children's needs. They celebrate their successes and achievements and help them build trusted relationships, which in turn help them feel happy and calm. But fundamentally, the journey doesn't stop here. In order to implement this strategy to its entirety, we need to continue on this journey. We intend to develop 2 more 2-bed small children's homes. And we're going to require ongoing support from our HR colleagues to help us develop the homes, recruit, retain, and look at the running costs of the homes. We'll continue to collaborate with our colleagues in finance to ensure that we are working within the financial envelope, but also looking to find necessary investments for future savings. And we'll continue to work closely with our capital and delivery service, who are helping us in looking at renovating potential properties for the future. As corporate parents, we must collaborate to develop these plans. Everyone has a role in this continued work, where every child should belong in a loving family, a good quality home, in their local schools where they feel they belong and thrive and attain, in their community where they feel they are valued and respected, and a member of the city of Sheffield where their voice is heard and they can see the impact of the voices on our decisions. Thank you for listening, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Lindsay. Councillor Mallinson.
Thank you, Lindsay, for that thorough description of how things are at the moment. It's really very deeply impressive, the work that's been done over the last few years, and certainly, I'm sure the committee would, but I certainly want to thank all those staff who've done so much work and are looking after our most vulnerable children so well. As an ex-teacher, I really welcome the human-centred approach and the sort of thought being put into what each child needs. The question is really, obviously it's fantastic what we're doing. I'm just aware that there's many other parts of the country where maybe they're still stuck where we were a few years ago. Is this approach being taken up elsewhere? And I'll be offering consultancy services or something.
So I think the sector nationally is struggling, we know that. So we've taken a proactive approach in Sheffield, and we've recently created a regional residential forum. So we're inviting colleagues from across South Yorkshire region. We've also extended that to the private sector within a 20-mile radius, so that we can come together on a quarterly basis and share positive examples of practice, have a space to be able to lean in on each other and utilise people's knowledge, skills, expertise. But it's also a really important place for registered managers to come along and be together, because it's a really difficult role. So it's something that we're working on in Sheffield. That's been received really well with our neighbouring authorities, and that's going to continue moving forward. So we're more than happy to share what we're doing. I know that there are other local authorities that are working incredibly hard in respect of their own in-house children's residential provision. And I think that the reality is, you know, these children need us. They need us to be their cheerleaders. They need us to be there to ensure that we're doing everything we can to provide them with good quality homes in the communities where they belong.
Thank you, Lindsay. I would just like to say my regular comment to all members when it comes to when we talk about our children's homes. And as community parents, we do have a responsibility to ensure that all of our children live within our communities. And you do see headlines quite regularly popping up in the press around outcries from communities because there's been a planning application for a children's home and all the perceptions of the children that live in those homes. Our children are not in homes for any fault of their own. And I feel that we must ask members, if approached in your wards, that you don't support petitions to stop children's homes being put in our communities. I do know that Lindsay and colleagues do have provider meetings to talk about expectations if they are private providers that are coming to run children's homes in our city. We have expectations of what it is that we expect for our children, don't we? So, you know, we're on about working more in partnership to ensure that we do get that right standard. If they're not run by us, if the homes aren't run by us, that children do get, no matter which home you're in, you get a good standard and a good quality of home. So I would just like to put that out to all members, if any are watching as well, that we actually support our children. And as elected members in our wards, work with providers and the community to do some of that cohesion work, some of that relationship building, so that when our children do move into those homes, they do feel like they're part of that community. So that's just an ask for members from myself within our communities. And thank you to all of our managers and all of our staff that work in our children's homes, and all of our education team, virtual schools that ensure that all our children are being educated as well. I think it is a big family effort, and it does really feel like that. So I think, Meredith, did you want to comment on as well?
Yeah. So I've been here for 18 months, and I know I'm beginning to feel like a bit of a worn and old shoe. But this is the area that I think I'm the most proudest of, transformational-wise. It is a profound achievement. I think the words are absolutely right. It's immense and profound, the impact that the team has had on some of our most vulnerable children, that real child-centred approach, that moving of values and cultures within a team, having that real focus, laser focus on what is best for our children. And some of the words that Lindsay's read back to us just show what a journey they've been on, and how proud we should be of the work that Lindsay and the team have led in this area. So it is the area that I'm most immensely proud and pleased about in the time I've been here. And I know I'm challenging, and I know I have been challenging, but the work that they've done is phenomenal.
Thank you, Meredith. Do any of the members have any questions or comments for Lindsay? No? Okay. So the recommendation is that the committee receive and note the Children and Families Residential Strategy and Outcome Plan. Are we all happy with that? Yep, that's agreed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lindsay, and please send our thanks out to everyone. Thank you. So now we're on to the agenda item number 12, which is on page 187 of your agenda pack, which is the Children's Performance Framework Q2 Performance Report, and it's James Ford who's presenting today. Thank you, James. Oh, Meredith, yes?
I'm really, can I just make an apology? So what should be happening is James should be flanked by Pat and Sally, because actually they're the people whose performance James is going to talk about. James has been here supporting us to make sure that we pull it together. For a range of different reasons, neither Sally or Pat are here. I will try and answer some of the questions in that sense. I don't know whether, Rose, are you going up there? I mean, possibly if the questions, so Rose and John are probably here to do that as well. So we will try and make sure the questions are answered from the service as well. But that's what normally will happen, and you will get used to, is that it is a directorate performance paper. James is supporting us corporately to make sure we have the right information.
Fabulous. And just, John, you're definitely not Lindsay. If you want to just move Lindsay's name down, that'd be great. Thank you. Okay, so if you'd like to make a start, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. So, first some background. This paper relates to establishment of our new council plan and our new outcomes framework that agreed all policy committees and supporting directorates would have a set of measures that includes the outcome framework measures, but also measures that are the directorates responsible for and the committees responsible for. In November, I brought a preceding paper to this that outlined what those measures were, the targets and the rationale for them. Today I'm bringing back those measures, but with data included. As you can probably see, it's quite a lengthy paper because of the diverse nature of children's services and the number of measures that we have to include. But Appendix 1 is split into 3 sections to kind of really aid absorption. Section 1 looks overall across the 4 priorities within the council plan. That's it in outcome 1, which is primarily related to children and families. And against each of those priorities, we show you where the number of measures are at different statuses, red, amber or green. Green being that they are meeting their target and there's little to worry about. Amber being that it's not currently meeting the target that we've set for ourselves, but we believe the mitigation actions, change actions and trajectory will get us there over the course of the council plan without further corrective action. And then red, where we're clearly not meeting that target, either locally or against our national comparators, and we need to take corrective action and as a directorate and committee keep a close eye on that until we've brought that into balance and met the target. There's 2 other statuses in there, awaiting and baselining. Some of these measures are quite longitudinal, particularly and one I will call out is Key Stage 4 destinations for employment, apprenticeships and education. That's quite longitudinal. We're not expecting data until probably the end of this calendar year, so we'll leave that as a waiting. And then we've got baselining. So there's a couple of metrics in there where, if we look back to the first report and how we chose our targets, we've tried to triangulate against past performance, how our comparators are doing, and then take really where we want to be aspirationally. There's not been time or the comparative data release yet for some of those measures to be given targets, but they will do over time. The second section simply lays out all those measures as a table, giving yourself as members a view of the current performance, past performance, where we are against the target in a comprehensive manner. And then section 3 gets into some more depths around the strengths and challenges across those priorities. What I intended to do for today was to present a short set of slides that focus on some key strengths and challenges in that area. And I picked ones out, particularly as this is a baseline report, that are ones that are particularly against the strengths that we need to make sure we continue to sustain and improve upon, and the challenges are those where we've seen a degradation in performance and we want to dig into. So if we could have the first slide, please. So our first strength is school admissions. So this is the percentage of our pupils securing their first school place preference, combined across our secondary and primary placements. There's nationally comparative data. You can see Sheffield's doing really well here. This is really important in our belonging framework about securing a place where you can learn. We compare really well there to national data, and I think that's a real testament to the admissions team and the planning team that do the work to make sure we have the right places and we get the children into the right places in the city. The next strength within Priority 1 is looking at school quality. So while we're going to look at some issues that we have got around attendance and inclusion, we've got a really strong base of school quality within the city. We're outperforming our comparators and have done for some years, particularly in the primary sector. While this is a combined number, the primary sector actually peaked at 96.2 in September 24, so it's a really high level of quality that we want to continue to sustain really in the city as a baseline for success. Next slide, please. We then get into some challenges. So we've recently had the early years foundation stage school readiness data released. For Sheffield, we've seen, albeit a small decrease of 0.4%, but we are moving away from our comparators to some degree in there. So that's an area for concern, and we know that getting development right at early years then plays a crucial part in how our child develops. And we know this study's been done around this particular measure and its prevalence to future success in attainment, propensity to become neat, and school attendance. What's really evident with this measure, and I've gone into much more detail in the paper, is what a role deprivation plays. So in there I've done quite a detailed piece on how the performance of this measure in the most wealthy parts of the city compared to the most deprived is almost like going back in time to when we were high performing versus where it is now. What I've put there is free school meals. That's an indicator of deprivation. So as you can see, the score of 49% for free school meals compared to 72.2% on average there. That takes me on to slide 2, which is a subset of this measure. So this is the earliest foundation stage, but the particular measure around communication and language. This has dropped significantly on a national level, but as you can see, Sheffield's included in that pack as well. We picked this one out and we chose it because specific needs around speech, language and communication are the most prevalent need that we see in our SEN cohort. So I think what we will see, and we've seen in papers that have come here, future projects, that we really need to target the early years phase and look to improve this. There's also recently in the press that the government's seeing this as one of its missions to raise the bar and raise aspiration, I think, to reach 75% school readiness, in which for Sheffield this measure will be impacted as well. So next slide, please. So this is a strength. This is our recovery in school attendance. So the polarity of this graph is that we actually want it needs to be lower to be better. So in the past, we've had much less nationally, locally and regionally, less children being persistently absent, which means they miss 10% or more of school. We see the COVID effect there, and now we're seeing a recovery. So Sheffield, for the first time, is its best performance really since 21-22. Since last year, we've improved a few percentage points and we're inside our target. This ties in with actions we're taking and improvements in attendance, making them a predominant action in all children and family action plans, whether in early help or within statutory care. What was that? It's still recovering. This is the data at the autumn term for this year. We're still to see the snow have an effect on this one, so I think when we see this one again, it may fluctuate, but it's going in the right direction and showing signs of recovery in line with the national picture. Next slide, please. So got some challenges in this priority 2 as well. So the next 2 are related to exclusions, the first one being rate of fixed term exclusions. So schools continue to report a significant high level of challenging behaviour. Unfortunately, our suspension rate has increased 7% in the autumn term. To 7%, in the autumn term from 4.65 in the same term last year. And this is mirrored by what's happening in Yorkshire and Humber data. If we can move on to the next slide, which is a similar position, but for permanent exclusions, again, they continue to be high. But there is work going on with Learn Sheffield and engaging head teachers and trusts to reduce those exclusions, working towards common principles and promoting consistent sanctions across the city. And we've got a conference coming up with head teachers and CEOs planned for the spring of 2025 to look at a strategic response to what is a local and national issue. If we could have the next slide, please. Another challenge here is the percentage of our newly made education, health and care plans that we issue or complete within 20 weeks of them being submitted to us. In the past, we've done well on performance, and the beginning of this year and late into last year, our performance was improving, but it has declined in the latter half of 2024. A target we set ourselves, looking at triangulation again of kind of comparators and aspiration, was 55%, but we're well below that currently on our year-to-date average at 41.2%. The latest comparator data, I just note, is only available to December 23. So what you're seeing there is what you're seeing there on the graph is just our comparator data to that point, but where we currently are now is at 41.2%. Next slide, please. So I'm going to finish on a strength. So this is our rate of children looked after per 10,000. As you can see, I know comparatives run out in 2023. We have been historically and remain low. We're well below our target. These low rates are really underpinned by efforts in early help and fieldwork teams within Sheffield, and the efforts to ensure children remain at home where it is safe to do so. I think this is one that we need to hold in our minds really as we go through it. This needs to stay where it is. There's some room for improvement, but little, and you can see where our comparators are on this one. So this shows Sheffield has a real strength in this area that it needs to continue to sustain, and it's evident in the other metrics that we're seeing there around our low SIM rates, our good performance on early help through the Building Successful Families programme, and our low re-referral rates into social care. So it's a real strength compared to some other areas of the country. So that is my quick view of our strengths and challenges, and I'll take any questions now if that's all right, Dawn.
Yep, that's great. Thanks, James. Does anyone have any questions or comments on James's report? Councillor Mahroof.
Thank you, Chair. One of the slides that you've put up there, having been on this committee for a number of years now, 6 to 8 years I think I've been on it, one of the key areas that we've always been looking at has been attendance at schools. And it's good to see that we're starting to, the trajectory seems to be going in the right direction now. But am I right in thinking we can still improve quite significantly on that, because it's still not where we want it to be? Because all the other statistics are sort of reliant on people attending school. So if they're not attending, then that's causing issues anyway across the board. The other thing that I've always asked a question on, and I don't seem to have had but I've not had an answer to this, is people taking children out of school for holidays and things like that, which can be 4 days, 3 days, 5 days. It does have a significant impact on their education, albeit the argument is always that it's towards the end of the term and people are not doing a great deal in the end, 3 or 4 days. And some people take a significant amount of time off because they go abroad for weeks on end to see family and friends, and they work on the principle that by the time that we get round to actually asking them why they've done that, it's all forgotten and it's gone. Is that still a perception, or have we strengthened that position there, where we are a little bit more inquisitive about why this is happening on a regular basis?
So I'm happy to take that one. First of all, your first point, yes, we're still massively ambitious for attendance to be a lot better. So this improvement is not good enough. We're still below national and we could be higher. The picture for primary is quite different to secondary, and it's our secondary attendance that has begun to rise 0.5% up, which in my world is huge. 0.5% up on last year. Primary attendance is on par with national. Secondary is where we really need to put the support, and we are. Term time leave has a massive impact on us, about twice as much impact as in other areas. You will have picked up from the DFE probably that fines going out in the Yorkshire and Humber area are far higher since the legislation changed. So that's a regional picture where lots of fines are being issued. We're doing some work on the attendance campaign at the moment to try to pitch it right, so that parents don't see an entirely see school as a really positive thing. Punitive measures do have a place and do have an impact, but they're not the whole picture. So it does still have an impact, and we are inquisitive in that space. There is areas of the city where there's really high mobility still, and that affects individual school attendances. Where that's the case, we try to target attendance support as best we can, and where we do that, we see more impact. More input from officers brings more impact.
Councillor Mahroof.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. I'm just trying to be devil's advocate here, because I know the trajectory is going in the right direction. It's just that I think you've answered my question. We've started from a very low base, and we've started to improve, in particular in the last year or so. And I'm glad that you mentioned that the recognition that holidays do cause an effect in a child's education, and especially if they're away for 3, 4, 5 weeks, and this tends to happen at the summer term. Is something that we need to pick up on. Just a follow-up question on one of the slides. Education healthcare plans, again, that's where another area which I've seen difficulties in the last 5-6 years. We're starting to improve on that considerably, I can see from the slide that you've shown there. Not this particular slide, that one, yeah. But once, isn't it EHCP translating into actual pupils getting the placements in the schools that they need to be in? Or is it still they get the EHCP? Because the historical situation used to be, you got your EHCP, but you couldn't actually get a place in one of the schools that you needed to be at, and therefore you were waiting for that to actually happen. We've improved this. Has that actually also improved?
Do you want me to? So first of all, we're actually declining again. So we did improve in 2022, and there was a real focus on it. It has declined. There are a whole range of reasons for that. Some of that is around focus on ensuring we're getting the right funding out to schools. I think I'll let Rose explain what we're doing about trying to recover to make sure we're at target. Around the placements for schools, there still continues to be a sufficiency issue. And you were talking about High Green. When we come back to committee, we will be looking at the entire sufficiency issues that are there, because it's partly about the number of spaces in special schools. It's partly about how we're making sure that our mainstream schools are equipped to accommodate more complex children, making sure that we're addressing issues of exclusion, children who are electively home educated, and with the school and children's bill, that they're likely to be back in school. So there's a whole big picture of how we're making sure that there's enough places for also a growth in the city and these or other factors. And we know that at the moment, the 2 special schools that are planned, there are some delays around that as well. So all of that plays into that picture of how do we make sure that it's the right place for the children once they have the EHCP. So simply, yes, some children absolutely get the right place. Some children, there's a conversation around where they are placed as well, and we'll work with mainstream schools. But Rose will be able to answer the question about EHCPs and perhaps in more detail as well.
Yeah, so what we're trying to focus on in this space is the quality of the EHC plans and the timeliness of them as well. So we've got the issue that we see in the timeliness, and why you see the line suddenly decline, is what there is another graph that shows how the increase in the needs assessments, so that has increased significantly. So we've now got double the number of children in our city that we had 2 years ago that have had a needs assessment and have got an EHC plan. And what has to happen in that space is you need education, health and care to provide that assessment of need and then the provision that's required. The educational psychologists have to input onto every single needs assessment. So not everybody inputs onto everybody's plan, but an educational psychologist must input into everybody's plan. And there is not enough educational psychologists nationally to be able to cover the number of needs assessments that come through. We've tried to take a balanced approach to this, because what we want to do is we want to keep a focus on graduated approach to try and prevent the escalation of need, whilst at the same time making sure we're producing robust assessments of needs and provision. But within that, when your demand starts to rise, you end up veering your capacity up towards the top end, and then you start to drive the escalation of need up to the needs assessment end. So we're trying to take a balanced view of how we keep that preventing escalation, but also providing quality assessments in a limited capacity. What we do see, although there is the decline in the timeliness of the EHC plans, what we are trying to make sure is that we wrap the support around our children. So whilst their plan might not be forthcoming within the 20 weeks, the support is there when they need it. So we're not seeing a rise in complaints in this space, but we are seeing a rise in the number of tribunals after the plan is issued, in order to try and secure those placements that you've talked about, which is what Meredith was speaking about.
No, thank you for that answer. I mean, my question was rather rambling, but I think I've got the answer that I actually required from it. Just one final point, and it's taking me back to the attendance issue again. There's quite a number of authorities that are starting to look at staggered term times for different schools in order to combat this holiday issue, which is everywhere in the country. Is it something that we probably would consider, because we've got fixed school holiday terms, haven't we? But I'm not saying we should. I'm just saying, is there any evidence out there that suggests that starts to reduce, improve attendance levels?
You take me back to my early days and my career as an education officer in Hartlepool, where that was part of the conversation. I think that there, with any situation where you're changing school term date, academies have their own responsibility around school term and holiday dates. You create as many answers as you do, you create as many problems as you do answers. You potentially have children at different schools and therefore parents needing to cover 5 weeks of holiday instead of 1 week of holiday. And it's all of those kind of things which then create some of the issue. I think that there is something and a continued lobby about government conversation with travel agencies, because we know that prices hike, don't they, as soon as you get anywhere close to school holiday time. Some schools have changed their approach. I think that the bigger issue continues to be, is a 6-week summer holiday detrimental to some children, and some school, and there is an argument that is an area that you would potentially look at as reducing the summer holiday. But on the other hand, we also know that there is an argument that part of a teacher's package is that there is that holiday period. So I suppose what I'm saying is there is research that points in different directions, and there is nobody ever wins when it comes to school term and holiday dates, I think is what I'm saying. So tread carefully.
Thank you, Meredith. I think there's just a couple of things from me really on this one, and I think I understand that we have an approach when it comes to attendance in schools, and I understand that we have the approach of the kind of, it feels a little bit like a deficit model. It's that kind of enforcement element of it. And I think there is a conversation to be had with parents and families actually, because the fact that on the run up to Christmas everybody's doing paper mache and playing games is a myth. And I think when, I think that maybe when we were at school that might have been the case, but I think the education system has completely changed. The curriculum is completely different. The workload is different. The amount of learning that our children and young people do now, and the importance of the building blocks that are required to move on through certain subjects. So if you miss a whole chunk of maths, you're not moving on. If you miss, and if you miss things within, in science, you're never going to get any further unless you understand the initial building blocks. And I think that's the really important conversation that we might need to have with parents actually, because education is very different now to what it was when we and the next generation that are younger than me, that are now parents, I'm a grandparent, but were at school. The whole places are different. And I just think the importance of friendships, and this goes back to belonging and feeling part of those friendship circles in school. If you're not part of, we know how important it is to be part of that group for children. If you're absent from school, you miss out on that, building those positive relationships and friendship circles and dynamics. And I think we need to think about how we get that messaging across to parents, that while we might feel that we're doing them a favour by letting them have a fantastic holiday and, spending time with their siblings, actually we need to be giving them opportunities to socialise in school and build different kinds of friendships and learn how to have disagreements and all that sort of life skill stuff outside of the family home. So if we can have a think about how we do that, that would be really good from a positive perspective. But apart from that, has anyone else got any more questions on James's presentation? You weren't really in on presentation. Is it something from one of the slides? Yeah, okay, Councillor Basharat.
Apologies for Camille. You touched on the fines. It was just a question around, is there any thing that you pick up what the fines are mostly on? The parents obviously, whether it's the children being taken abroad, or is something that just gets picked up which area the fines are mostly actually given to the parents? Does that give?
We don't have, we don't subdivide down a report on the different reasons for fines, but we do know the numbers and scale is higher than it was. could be an interesting thing to look at. The more we were in touch recently around one of your constituents, and I don't think the advice from the school was as clear as it could have been actually, and that's important as well, so parents are really clued up on what they're doing, because going back to the national situation and what Meredith raised in terms of travel agencies, the lady I saw on Look North said, well, I just considered it like a tax. You know, the fine was an incorporated part of the tax I was paying. That's a different attitude, I think, maybe to the one, your constituents that received the fine, the position they were coming from. So I'm not sure if that answers your question. So we don't report on that.
No, that's okay. It was just generally.
Meredith just wants to.
Yeah, so I think the thing that we really need to be clear about, and it might be helpful if we circulate this. So Learn Sheffield have done a really clear report that links the number of days not in school to attainment, and it is really stark, the impact of not being in school on your GCSE results. And, you know, what we want is our children to be able to attain the best they can. And if a simple factor is just being in school, is going to mean that you have better grades, which means that you have more of an opportunity to succeed, then that's the message we need to get out there. So we'll make sure it's circulated as part of the minutes, but it's just, I mean, that message is, it is a small number of days that we would think, you know, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, just not in school. The impact on your exam results is profound. And you think about that over a 5, 6, 7 year period. It is people think it's only a small amount of time, but it really does have a profound impact on your attainment.
Thank you, Councillor Mahroof.
Chair, you like this? I was actually going to agree with you. Again, we're getting too good at this agreeing business. But we've got to put a stop to it fairly soon, otherwise I'll be thrown off this committee. But yeah, in terms of what you said earlier, which is absolutely relevant, we can send as many messages out as we like through school letters and things like that. But educating the parents is the most important part of it. And I think Meredith just exemplified what I was thinking. 2 weeks is a pretty long time, especially when people take this attitude that if it's towards the end of July, when I was at school, that we did play with paper mache and we watched films towards the end of the week, and people still think that actually happens. But having teachers in the family, I know it doesn't actually happen like that. And I think educating parents is going to be terribly important. And if we take a stricter role on this, and 1 or 2 messages do get out, and I think that will become more important in terms of getting the message out. Because at the moment, people take like you've said, they consider it a tax. If it's £500 for a flight, if I take them in outside term time, 250 plus 80 quid, I'm fine. That's not a problem. Other parents where the kids are in a challenging situation anyway, and taking them out of school for 2 or 3 weeks at an end to visit relatives abroad or whatever it might be, is a significant chunk of their learning life. So, yes, I think that's something that we can actually agree on.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Councillor Mahroof. Okay then, so thank you for, I'm sure that we will all learn as this goes on, because this is obviously a new process for us as members to be able to understand all your graphs and figures and everything, and I think as we get along, as we pick up on it more. But thank you, James, for all the work that you've done on presenting this to us, and thank you for everyone for helping us through the slides. On this item then, the recommendation is that we note the Education, Children and Families Performance Framework Baseline Report as the way we show progress against the Council Plan. Agree to receive quarterly reports that provide an overview of performance against the measures, describing performance challenges, interventions taken and the results of changes made. Identify any issues of concern that they may wish to discuss in future performance reports in more detail, and agree to the review the measures and targets at least annually in the context of progress, new areas of focus and impact of external changes. Do we all agree to note that report? That's agreed. Thank you very much, everyone. And in light of that, that is the end of our meeting today. Our next meeting, I believe, is on the 1st of April at 2 o'clock. Yep. So thank you, everyone, for coming today. Thank you. Oh.